ESTBX. My wife had an affair 3 years ago. I found out about it in 2015 when I saw some texts in a secret email account to a young guy she knew from golfing. But my wife convinced me it was an IA and that it was over. I believed her, thinking it was a MLC. My wife was 45 at the time. Her abusive, to her mom, dad had just passed and she was afraid of aging. She promised NC, deleted her Gmail account, and deleted her Facebook account, gave me her phone password, which I never used, but had. We tried reconciling, but there was always something distant about my wife, like she was hiding something. We never reconnected emotionally. Now, 3 years later we are separated and my wife finally admitted that it was actually a physical affair for the summer of 2014 ending Nov 2014, following the IA that began in 2013, including texting fantasies to each other. She admitted this 1 week after leaving our house. The OM is now married and has a 1-year-old child. In 2014, he cheated on his fiancée with my wife, who is 13 years older than him. He also had a girlfriend at the time of the IA and was just divorced from his first wife, leaving a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. My wife kept this secret and even her closest friends did not know about it. She poisoned our relationship protecting this secret and is now living the life of a single, dating mere days after leaving, still chasing guys 10-15 years younger. She knows she needs help and is in IC, but we are finished. It is like she had 2 personalities and the wayward personality has now taken over. She is living in full fantasy mode. Needless to say, my kids, too, and I are having a hard time coping. My kids are coping better than me. I know I should just let it go, but now that I know that this guy had a physical affair with my wife, while cheating on his ex-wife at the beginning of the IA and then juggling a girlfriend, my wife, and his fiancée towards the end. He would meet my wife in the basement of his grandfather's house, which is where he lived after splitting from his first wife. My wife was not even worth a hotel. It's pathetic to think about how my wife lowered herself and her self-worth to that point and threw away a long-term marriage for a fantasy. It makes me sick. At this point I do not see my wife and I reconciling. I can forgive the affair, but I cannot see forgiving the years of lying. I am dying to contact the OM and let him know what I think. I also found his dad so would copy him as well. I know I shouldn't lower myself to do this, but it would be satisfying and might help me to bring closure to this. Right now, thinking of this guy, new baby, probably cheating on his new wife, using my wife for free golf and a free meet is keeping me awake at night. My wife is responsible too, but I can't let go of the idea to contact this guy. Should I? Can't shake the feeling that exposing this jerk would help me to move on. A lot of my friends say the same thing. If it wasn't him, it would have been somebody else. But this guy, from all accounts, is almost like a sociopath when it comes to women. My wife was just one more conquest for him. My wife is attractive and I am sure he thinks he bagged a cougar, just one more notch in his belt. Whereas I am living the reality, with 2 kids living at home who miss their mom. I know that we were having a rough patch during her affair. At the time they met we were married 20 years with 2 young kids, age 9 and 7. I was busy being a dad, busy at work. She was under a lot of family and work stress too. We were in MC at the time. Then when he started flirting with her, it was like a switch turned off, and she's been gone ever since. I know I should just move on and take the high road, but can't let go. And I can't let go of the idea that contacting this jerk will help bring closure. Honestly, it is more about revenge and feeling like exposing him and letting him know that there are consequences to his screwing around. That's why I am a little conflicted about this. Most of my buddies are telling me to just let it go, but I'm almost obsessing about this. And the reality is I don't know his wife, have no way to contact her, and their surname is very common. I'm going to sit on it for a while, seeing my IC tomorrow too, so maybe I'll get a different perspective. Not like it's a rush since the affair happened in 2014 ending sometime around end of the year 2015. I know the guy got married in March 2015. I just think I would get some satisfaction from doing it, but not sure if it's worth it. I tried to not do it, I really did. But for closure I really needed to do something. My wife won't really talk about it beyond her reluctant confession. I sent an email directly to the piece of crap OM, forward his dad and forward my wife. No profanity, just a brief description of the affair, a brief description of the aftermath, and an invitation to talk because I have a few words for them and email just wouldn't do it justice. So, we'll see what happens. Whether this will help me to move on or not we'll just have to see. But I finally concluded that it's better to do it rather than wallow in anger and grief over the ending of my marriage. Wonder if the piece of crap will even reply. Surprise, surprise, a quick and indignant denial, complete with a, "What the hell are you talking about?" Now he's emailed back saying my wife must be crazy, or covering for somebody else. He has no idea why she is throwing him under the bus. The poor man. His last email. Not sure how I would sneak a married woman into my grandparents' basement considering they still live here, and other family comes, goes all hours of the day. Thanks for the compliment, but I don't have those kind of balls. Anyway, this isn't getting anywhere. Good luck to you and your wife, hope you work things out. I don't think he has any balls. I did make one mistake. I had changed my wife's name in my address book to Disloyal Cheating Skank, just to give me a lift when she texts, emails me. Didn't know that it also goes out when you email. So, when I forwarded one of his denials to her, it had her name as disloyal cheating skank. I wonder if it's the right time to ask if she wants to reconcile. Oh well, I guess I really do have to move on now. I forwarded one of his denials with the comment, he's not as good a liar as you. Ma'am, it's going to be a frosty mediation meeting tomorrow. Anyway, it was juvenile, but I feel good. Should have done this in 2015 when I discovered their texting relationship, which my wife made me believe was strictly and over. Oh well, better late than never, I suppose. Maybe I'll get a decent night's sleep now. Well, my wife sent me a long email saying that she had made the whole physical part of the affair up. Various reasons, according to her, she thought it would speed up the divorce prospects. She thought it would make it easier for me to let go. Funny timing for this retraction. The past month has been devastating for the kids and for me. That wasn't enough for her to retract her story. I had explained to her that divorce on grounds of adultery is slower and more expensive here. That wasn't enough to detract her story. She said that she gets tested for STD by her doctor, part of the story, I guess. So, I went into my doctor to get tested, results in 2 weeks. But that wasn't enough for her to detract her story. No, it's obvious that she is just covering up for a scumbag she slept with 3 years ago. He must have contacted her privately to get her to retract. He's now married again, with a 1-year-old, cheated on his then fiancée with my wife. I guess it's time for him to start fooling around again. He's got the I've got a 1-year-old baby itch. I hope they knock themselves out. As for my wife, just one more example of her pathological lying. Sad, as she was once the most honest person I knew. I don't know if I would do it again, or recommend doing it, so long after the fact. But the one benefit of contacting the OM has been it underscores the need for me to move on. That alone made it worth it. So, don't feel closure really, but have a definite sense of freedom. And I can think back on my marriage and know that the first 20 years were pretty fine and that I did everything I could to salvage the marriage over the past 3 years. And I have to laugh at the ridiculousness of the lies. Seriously, I made up the affair because I thought it would be easier for you to move on. What a wonderful and thoughtful gesture. My wife sent me an email that I guess was her form of an apology. In other words, it wasn't an apology at all, merely a way to rationalize her infidelity. Here is an excerpt. I have had a lot of time to reflect on our situation in the last few weeks. What happened between us is very sad. I changed from the young, insecure, bewildered 23-year-old into a more confident woman with different needs. But somehow, those needs were not being met and I did irreparable damage by looking outside the marriage to satisfy those needs. Call it vanity, midlife crisis, narcissism. I took the wrong path. She goes on to say that she hopes I see will get us both to a better place emotionally. Of course, she never actually apologizes for cheating and lying. She just says she is sorry for herself. So, her wrong path is the path to a better her. That is how she is looking at it. She is reading Broken Open and getting validation for her cheating because her cheating was a sign of her newfound confidence. The sad thing is, when we married, she was a very confident, very together woman, young, but wise. As she aged, we did grow apart, as most marriages do at one point. Kids, jobs, boredom. I went through the same feelings of growing apart earlier in our marriage, except I worked on rebuilding our relationship and my feelings for her. Now, my wife is afraid of aging. She gets Botox regularly, laser skin treatments, implants, and she was very good looking to begin with. Still is, but she looks a little plastic. So, she is definitely not confident about her own self-image. I think this talk of growing to become a confident woman is just girl talk of how my wife's circle of single, unhappy, divorced women justify their betrayals. None of them are happy and they're all chasing younger guys, not too successfully either, in order to fight growing old. Chasing young guys at a club, all of whom would be happy to get into your pants once, is not a sign of confidence. Kind of pathetic, really. My wife got her chest done when she was in the midst of an IA with a younger guy she met golfing, 13 years younger. It morphed into a PIA the following summer. I discovered the IA 1 year later, but by then the PIA was already over. My wife let me believe it was just an E. We had several false R's because my wife had already emotionally detached. She never got it back. We separated last month and she finally admitted to the PA, reluctantly, I should add. I can't forgive her for the deception and lies. She is still in a fog, and when I recently contacted the OM, my wife is living in her own fantasy world, where she is a confident woman, looking for a younger man. I am no longer waiting for her to snap out of it. She is gone forever. My wife has gone through stages of rationalization. When I first discovered what I thought was just an EA, my wife said that we had grown apart, and she had to keep it secret because I would get mad if I found out. Yes, I would. Then she started to blame me for taking the kids for the odd weekend to the cottage, forcing her to stay home and golf and then go clubbing. Then she started to blame me for her pathological lying, saying I forced her to lie because I didn't like her friends or her lifestyle. My wife and I are separated now, and I only talk to her about the kids. So, I don't bother telling her how I feel about her looks. In fact, I refuse to be in the same room with her unless there is another adult. This is because another part of her fantasy is that I am so emotionally wrecked that I may do her harm. She actually said this during mediation. What an ego. So now, I will not put myself into a position where her flights of fancy could screw me over. As for the being emotionally wrecked and dangerous, I am looking after her children 12 out of 14 days. This is not a problem for her because she only thinks of herself, as usual. I am sure one of her wonderful, divorced friends put her up to this. She has been a project of theirs for about 2 to 3 years. My wife was the only one in her group, of about 10 to 12, who was still married. Little does she know that I have moved past the longing stage and now look at her more with pity. Most men will still find her attractive, and any red-blooded mid-30s guy would love to get into her pants. Once, to me, she is starting to look a little trampy. She looks good in clothes, but I know where the scars are. My wife hid the PA, allowing me to believe it was just an IA, but our attempts at reconciliation were doomed from the start because she was holding this secret. And by holding the secret, she looked at everything in our marriage as a threat to her secret, her security. So, for 3 to 4 years, our marriage festered in a stew of her lies. It was like roller coaster, some really good periods followed by a bad period. Over and over again. Don't hold your breath waiting for your wife to beg for your forgiveness. In fact, you might want to just forgive her for the affair, as long as you can deal with it, but hold her accountable for the lies. She moved out, into a 1-bedroom condo, not suitable for 2 children. She wanted to live in our house, separated. This shows how detached and selfish she is. She wanted to be able to date and go out when it was my week, but had no appreciation of the hurt as well as toxic, unhealthy environment for the kids. I got tested for STD this week, after 26 years being monogamous. Get the results in 2 weeks. Yes, I too am convinced that the affair was not the only one. It took place 3 years ago, and my wife's behavior during our false R didn't really change. It would for months at a time, then her girlfriends would enable her to revert back. I really hate her circle of friends, who I have never met, since my wife kept them separate from the family. She is still in a fog, living in a fantasy world where she meets a handsome, successful 35-year-old and they live happily ever after. It is sad and pathetic to watch. My wife had the nerve to call me this morning asking if I could come over to her place to fix her email. My daughters are with her for the first multi-night stay. I think my eldest daughter did something to her computer. I told her that it is weird to ask me, given what happened this week. Just to highlight how bizarre, I am posting some more of her weird email sent to me on Weds. The morning after I contacted the OM 2 days later, she is asking for my help. She is truly a self-centered narcissist to even think of asking. Here is her full email. Remember, this is sent Weds morning right after I had contacted the OM from her 2013 IA and 4 to 6 month physical affair. I did not have a physical affair with X, I made that up. Remember the context in which this confession was obtained from me. On the day of the banquet, you had spoken with your lawyer and suggested to me that we could speed up the divorce process if there was a physical relationship. Note, I had told her that divorce on grounds of adultery is longer, more expensive, and you need proof of bonding. That is when she confessed. I stupidly confessed without thinking, hoping it would in fact speed up the process, without understanding that it would hurt not just you and our kids but also other people who are not even part of this equation. I made it up because I thought it would make it easier for you to let go of me. The past month has been hell for me, with her also telling me she is tested for STD at every checkup and that she didn't view her affair as wrong even though they were both married with kids. According to her, the bonding was fun. Now she is saying she made it all up. Does she think everyone is an idiot? I wanted to have a physical relationship with X but never went through with it because I had my breast done in March 2014 and the scars from that surgery was horrible. I was too self-conscious to let anyone near it. Note, does this sound like a confident woman? Also, the scars were healed in weeks, still highly visible, but nothing a horny 32-year couldn't overlook in a dark basement. She is sorry. She has not once looked me in the eye and said, I am sorry for what I did to you. All of her sorry are for herself. She is sorry she got caught. She is sorry I contacted the OM, and now she is sorry she told me the truth, years after the fact, and is now covering up for the possum with another lie. Sorry honey, but I am just too busy to help you this morning. Next week will be rough though. Thursday would have been our 25th anniversary, so I am prepared for a rough go. I think I will take my daughters and maybe another couple out for a very good dinner at a good restaurant. Funny thing is, I already have a reservation for 2 at the same restaurant my wife and I celebrated our first anniversary. Almost forgot I made it. Did this about 3 months ago following our summer vacation, which I thought was great for everyone. It's tough to let go of a woman you have loved for 25 years but realize that the past 5 to 6 I have been loving her memory, not the actual person. Still working on letting go, believe that I am 70% there. It is amazing that my wife thinks her explanation is credible or makes things better. It just shows how far gone she is. She's done stuff like this, irrational rationalizations, for years. During one of our false Rs, my wife would say that I shouldn't worry about her when she was out with her friends. She was just the wingman for her other desperate friends. When I thought it was just an E, my wife would say that X had a young girlfriend and that she, my wife, wasn't his type, not even his age group. That was supposed to make me feel better 3 years ago. Turns out my wife tossed her self-respect out the window and became this jerk's second or third booty call in his grandfather's basement. Does it get any more pathetic than that? I had mentioned that a few of my wife's friends were what I considered to be late bloomers in the sense that as they aged, their peers aged more, and their previously cool husbands became loser homebodies, so they embraced the cougar mentality of looking good and getting hit on by younger guys. These are girls who were likely introverts during high school. My wife was not an introvert, but was always supporting her mom, doing well at school, and heavily into athletics. As I mentioned, when we married, she was a virgin. I wasn't, and that was always a bit of an issue with my wife, often asking about my previous girlfriends, in particular my last steady girlfriend before her, blonde and very good looking. We broke up in university 3 years before I met my wife. My wife actually destroyed any picture of her from my photo albums when we were first married. So, my wife isn't a typical late bloomer. She's always been attractive and popular, but she was a good girl. So now, she is really acting out her delayed adolescence. She is in her bad girl stage. I contributed to this a little bit. After our second child, my wife put on a little weight, understandable, and let herself go a little bit. I have to admit that was the time I found myself a little less attracted to her. Superficial, I know. But instead of looking outside our marriage, what I did was I got her a set of lessons at a fitness club in the underground path system downtown. So she didn't even have to go outside. She could walk from her office underground to the gym, didn't even need a coat in the winter. She loved it and has been doing it ever since. It really transformed her body so that she is as trim as she was before babies. I have to admit, physically, she is still incredibly attractive to me. Anyway, sometimes I wonder if I created a monster because she just became so into working out, then started getting laser treatments for her face to combat spots. It just escalated. This was 10 years ago, but things were still really good between us, or so I thought until about 6 years ago. That is when she started making a set of new friends, and that is when her toxic peer group started forming. All are older, early to mid-40s, divorced, separated, or openly having affairs, and they are all super vain, really into themselves and get a hit out of a younger guy complimenting them. It really is pathetic. No point exposing her friends because they are way ahead of even where my wife is. My wife was the last of the group who was actually married. I know now that they have been actively introducing her to guys for at least 1 year, while my wife ate her cake, waffling between trying to reconcile and living her fantasy. These are her good friends. She has no friends in a stable relationship and has kept her secret life separate from mine for years. Most of my friends and most of the family friends are in stable relationships. The fantasy one. I'm not hanging around to pick up the pieces when my wife realizes the fantasy is just that, a fantasy. The path she has chosen, she may never realize it. I figure she has another 3 or 4 years left of her fantasy lifestyle before age catches up with her. Even if I wanted to, that is far too long to wait and she is damaged goods as far as I am concerned. She'll eventually find somebody, and good luck to them. Sad and pathetic, but that's how it is and I am accepting it more and more each day. We cannot talk or even email each other without getting toxic. I try to focus on just the best interests of the kids when dealing with my wife, but my anger and mistrust always makes me think of the ulterior motives behind her unilateral changes or requests to our parenting plans. She never does anything without her in mind. Our 25th anniversary would have been this coming Thursday. In the meantime, I am very concerned that my wife is going to ask for more access going forward after she finds herself. Even though my kids do not like staying at her place, they love my wife, but she has a 1-bedroom condo. They have no space to call their own. I was used for the past 4 to 5 years while my wife was cake eating. Don't want it to happen again. So, I have asked our mediator to formalize whatever we agree to ASAP, but my wife keeps saying, oh, we have to give the kids time to adjust, meaning we have to give my wife time to adjust. Is this typical? Should I expect it to get better? What can I do to make it better? Is it my anger and mistrust preventing cooperation? I just want to formalize a plan and move on. This limbo sucks. Are my expectations about formulating a parenting plan ASAP unrealistic? I want to be able to deal with my wife about the kids without it turning into a fight. I am taking care of things while my wife gets settled into her new life, fantasy. And then she will ask for 50%. I hate being a part-time dad, so don't want to lose more down the road. It was hard enough adjusting to the current setup. The parenting plan sets a standard that is typically followed in divorce. But my wife is trying to stall setting up a parenting plan, so I am in limbo. Her condo is clean, furnished, expensive, and she has been sleeping on the couch when the girls stay, with my eldest in her bedroom and my youngest in the den, which I made private by putting up full-length curtains on the sliding glass doorway. It is big enough, but my daughters don't like staying there, even though they love my wife, and my wife does love them too. But they have no permanent space to call their own in her condo. My wife did not think of the kids when she chose it. I guess what I am really looking for is a sense of permanence rather than this limbo. But our relationship is so toxic at this point that I can't see us agreeing to anything. Meanwhile, my wife has no reason to agree. She says that she misses her children, yet she doesn't seem to be making any efforts to get them used to the concept of staying at her place. Just wondering if others have found that this type of situation is typical, and what I can expect in the future for it to get better or for it to continue to deteriorate into a messy divorce. I just don't trust my wife at this point with anything. Today would have been my 25th anniversary. I wasn't expecting to contact my pathologically lying, cheating STBX at all. A day to move on. Planning to take my 2 daughters out to a great restaurant to celebrate us. Started out to be a good day. Instead, my STBX emails me saying that she wants to take my kids to the Cayman Islands after New Year's for 5 days. She wants my approval. My STBX, who has only had the kids for 5 days since moving out on October 19th. I suspect that she has a girls' vacation planned with some of her toxic friends, with my eldest daughter slated to babysit while the girlfriends party. She denies this. Anyway, my wife is disloyal, a cheater and a proven liar. I no longer believe a word she says. Asking for my approval for a holiday vacation with my daughters and asking on what would have been our 25th anniversary is completely par for the course with her. It is all about her, all the time. My wife and I have been totally independent financially since about our 5th year of marriage. She is quite successful and makes a lot of money. Of course, she forgets that I got her started in the business and supported her when she got started. Actually, my entire family and my parents' friends moved a lot of money over to her when she first got started. Funny how she can't seem to remember any of that now. I let the mediator know how little my wife has done in the past month and a half. I am actually okay with her taking the kids, but not okay with how she asked and how let me know about it. Her typical trickle truth way. And if I find out my oldest daughter was used as a babysitter, I will be extremely upset. I don't want to refuse the request though, because I already have a trip planned for March break out of the country and have already purchased the plane tickets. This was before we split, have 4 tickets. I'll need her permission at that time. Guess I'll have to find somebody else to keep me company on the trip. Nah, I'll just cancel her ticket. A few months later. Update. I need a slap. I miss my wife. I miss her presence. I miss waking up with her. I miss her smell. I miss her touch. I even miss her with the kids. She alternated between being a great mom, nightclubbing mom during her MLC. Everything is more complicated with the separation. I am in our house, but it is joint name. If we sell, neither of us could buy back into the neighborhood because housing prices have doubled and are surprising strong where we live. Yet we both want the kids to stay in the same school through high school. But beyond the practical, I still hold out hope that my wife is in a long-term fog and that she could emerge someday. This is where I can't seem to get past. This remaining hope business is killing me. And I know what my failings were during our marriage. I recognize how I contributed to the decline. Too late. But I know my own behavior contributed and I'm working on it. Her current fog, her OM is a semi-public figure and separated. They are keeping their relationship totally underground. I think because he does not want it out there. Get this, his family has strong evangelical religious leadership ties and dad has had 3 marriages, the first 2 ending in affairs. So, I don't think they want any more adultery scandals to hit the news. I've been warned, by my lawyer as well as our mediator, to stay out of my STBX's business, since we're separated. So I have been respecting that and have not made any more contact with the OM or my STBX about this. I suspect that the OM is like the dad, a scam artist. But it will look very bad if I interfere. My own lawyer advised staying out of it. Besides which, my STBX and I are separated, so it is even adultery. So why do I care? I have regressed the past week from a state of indifference to one where memories and mind movies, which I never had before, even with OM, are screwing up my head. Had a really bad night. Why is this? What's wrong with me? And am I crazy for still thinking that there is a greater than 0% chance we could get back together? When my STBX is in one of her normal moods, she is still attractive to me. But the question is, maybe her fog is permanent and her normal moments will disappear completely. My STBX has done nothing to indicate she wants to ever reconcile. There have been a lot of heated arguments and bad blood ever since the separation, which started amicably, yet I have this urge to write her a letter. Not a pleading letter, but a letter to tell her how I felt about her during our marriage. She thinks I just didn't like her, and truthfully, sometimes I didn't because of how she acted, but I never stopped loving her. At the very least, I want to express that things cannot go on like this because it's becoming impossible to deal with stuff even for the kids. Is this stupid? Anyway, feel like I've gone backwards about 2 or 3 months in my recovery. It's just so frustrating to hear her complain about how bad it was and how long she was unhappy. It's like our 25-year marriage was 100% bad. And keep in mind, we had 10 years together before we had children. It was like a 10-year honeymoon, seriously. And she's forgotten all about it. And I look back at photos and see us after work in the basement playing with the kids, my STBX in cut-off jeans and a t-shirt, and her face is glowing with happiness. Then something happened and the simple things were no longer fun. Then, when our youngest was 3 or 4, something changed. And in the next couple years she was full-blown into her MLC. And since her affair, she has been rewriting our history so that even before kids, in her mind, she was unhappy. So, here's what traps me. Even during our false R, there were these moments where the old STBX showed up. Just little things, a touch here, a head on my shoulder there. And throughout, we had a satisfying bedroom life, until the last 6 to 9 months when it became all me wanting it. It's those brief moments where even the look in her eyes changed back to her old self that I don't want to give up. But maybe it was like a slot machine, just random rewards to keep you hooked. I have this fear that she'll snap out of her fog, but will never admit it because of pride, saving face, as well as her impression that I hate her. I do, because of what she's doing, but I still love her. Makes sense. That's why I want to write the letter. I am moving on, slowly and relapsing right now. At the same time, if she was truly willing, I would work on a new relationship with her under certain conditions. It's been so easy to advise others to detach, but can't seem to take my own advice. How stupid is that? This past weekend, my STBX texted me to please call her. I responded with a simple "what's up?" She then called me, and for the first time since I discovered her affair, came as close to expressing remorse as I have ever seen. She even acknowledged lying and not being honest during our 3 previous MC sessions. She then asked if I would be willing to go through MC again, except this time, I would choose the MC. My STBX would attend with whomever I chose. On the weekend, she confirmed, twice, that she meant it, and that she is serious about taking one last shot at seeing if we can salvage anything. Now here is the honest truth. At this point, I don't know if I want to expose myself to any further damage by my STBX. I don't know if I could ever live with her, knowing what she did. But that is part of the problem for me. I have never heard my STBX explain what she did or why she did it, or even an apology for why she did it. Everything I know is from my own observations and deductions. I have been stuck in the detachment process because I have not ever had a sense of closure for her betrayals. I really need to hear from her mouth what happened. I also have to be honest and admit that there is still a part of me that loves my STBX, or at least loves the good memories of her. And physically, I am still attracted to her. So, this is where I am at right now. I'm sitting on the fence or perhaps deluding myself. For my own benefit, I want to go through a process where my STBX will talk openly about her affair. I want to go through a process where my STBX will be held accountable for some of the choices she made. A part of me really needs this. I also recognize that there were pre-affair problems and I need to understand, fully, what my role was in creating these conditions. I know that I have my own accountability in allowing our marriage to get to a point where my STBX considered cheating as an option. So, as it stands, I discussed this with my IC who is open to this for the same reasons I am open to it. She sees this as a way to get some form of closure, no matter what happens for the end result. She is going to give me recommendation for MC. I am also getting a recommendation from our mediator as well as researching myself. My ideal MC would be somebody who doesn't rug sweep. Our previous MC all took the stance that the past is past. My wife never mentioned her affair during any of the sessions, and none of her lies were ever discussed because the past is past. I think that's bull crap. I want MC to examine the past and ask for each of us to take accountability for what happened. I want my STBX to explain her affair. Where, when, how often. These are all details that are important to me, for reasons I don't even understand. I want her to come clean with everything and for her to be honest with me. I know things she does not know that I know. So, it is important to me that she admits these without prompting. I know it sounds selfish, but I need the MC as a way to get closure on a lot of unanswered questions. If something good comes out of MC, all the better, but I will have to deal with that possibility if and when it happens. Update: I'm not over my STBX by a long shot, in the sense that there is still a lot of pain, anger, sadness that I need to work through, as well as her continued delayed adolescent lifestyle which affects how we deal with the kids. But my new friend, divorced 2 years, understands the stages, process, and she is extremely understanding, a good woman, and attractive too. And being with her makes me realize more and more what a dysfunctional relationship I had before. I've only known this person for a month and a half and there's already a level of trust, honesty which don't think I've had for years. The funniest thing is that my wife found out I am dating and her reaction was typical, inviting me for lunch, calling, emailing at odd times. She showed up as a match on a dating site I had subscribed to, which I have now deactivated, and her profile was a scream and a half, complete with a photo that I had taken and that used to be one of my favorites, quite hot, in her workout gear, but I had photoshopped it, not even sure she knows that. I read her profile and just shook my head. Reads like a teenager who has just moved out of the house. Just shows how messed up she is and how I'm well rid of her. At the same time, I still worry about her sometimes, a hard habit to break after 27 years, including 25 years of marriage. A part of me still views her as sick and broken, but then I remind myself that it's no longer my job to fix her. I've got a lot of hilarious STBX stories from the past 2 months which I'll try to post at some point. I'm entering my 8th month of separation, 7 months post D-Day 2, so not beating myself up over any relapses. Still in IC weekly and all advice is that time will heal all wounds. Truly believe now that I will look back at this in a year or two and I will be thankful this happened no matter where I am. She is still living in a total fantasy world in her second life, her first life being work and her weeks with the kids. Her interest in me is more a form of control, knee-jerk jealousy, and very predictable. That's why I didn't go out. My dealings with her are strictly with respect to the kids, and even that is proving to be too much contact, daily. Our kids are very busy, so there is a lot of interaction. For me, the crazy thing is I started out dating casually, with the intent to just distract myself. Then I met this person who is really attractive to me, and I believe the feeling is mutual. In a sense, it's almost unfortunate that I met her at this stage versus a few months down the road. I don't think I'm ready for another long term right now, but I've met somebody who understands and is willing to be patient and see what develops. It's amazing how a new relationship can help to open your eyes to the past. I look at my STBX and I don't really see anything I like, other than her looks. And my new friend is just as attractive but doesn't spend hours and money on medical procedures to stay artificially young. She's the same age as my STBX but has smile lines in the corner of her eyes which are nice. She's secure and confident in herself, and that is truly sexy. As an update to my separation journal, my kids saw our mediator, alone, this week for the first time. Not sure what was discussed, but our mediator is going to meet with me and my STBX, separately, to discuss feedback, advice, and next steps. My STBX still has the one-bedroom condo and my kids hate going there. They love my STBX but hate her place. It's really toughest on the kids, so we're getting to a point where my STBX finally realizes that it's not in their best interest to shuffle them back and forth every week. So that's progress too. Of course, there's also the distinct possibility that she's willing to give me the kids more so that I'm too busy to date and she has more free time. My comment: all you can do is clear the brush, control your reactions, quit fixing, and let them experience their own consequences. Then they have to decide what they want. In the meantime, waiting for them to decide is a form of enabling in itself. Be careful.